All right, hey everybody. So today I want to give you some of my top travel tips. Now, we're going to talk about solo travel and we're going to talk about tips that you might need if you're traveling with friends. Really, it's not all that different. There's some slight differences, but we're going to talk about everything from how to handle family and friends that really aren't supportive of your travels, plane going overhead, how to handle surprises. Travel, a lot of it is about adapting to what happens. So we'll talk about that, how to book travel, how to plan things, what you need to know in advance. There's a lot of things that are good if you're new to traveling or just going to go to a new destination. So let's get right into that now. By the way, make sure you've subscribed to my channel if you haven't done so yet. I'm in Thailand right now. Can you tell? The dragon behind me. I'm at a temple. India's coming up next. Korea. There's a lot coming. Anyway, so make sure you do that, and make sure you also hit the little bell. That'll make sure you get notifications for my videos. But anyway, let's talk about your travel, what you need to do, what you need to know. So a lot of people that I talk to, maybe they're nervous about traveling and they're not really sure how to get over that. So some of that can be if your friends and family don't travel a lot, they're not super supportive. To be really honest with you, when I first left for my first solo travel trip, to say that my family was nervous is an understatement. Like, honestly, my mom was angry with me. She might forget that now or pretend like it didn't happen, but she was. Now, it's like, 3 years later, many countries later, she's super supportive, super on board, but she was definitely not on board when I first left for my first trip and was really worried about me and wondering if I would be safe. So the number one tip I have is that if you're thinking about travel and it's kind of really new, watching videos like this one is a really good thing to do to kind of familiarize yourself with other people's travel experiences. But also you can join a Facebook group that's about travel if you haven't done so already. There are so many different Facebook groups, so many different things. So, there's like Facebook groups for Black people, Facebook groups for women who want to travel, Facebook groups for everyone, Facebook groups for people who want to travel to India. There's every kind of nuanced group that you can think of for travel. And if you don't see one, you can start one and say, hey, I want to travel. I'm this demographic. I don't see a group. Let's create a community. Totally great. Totally fine. So joining a group is great because then you can talk to other travelers because, a lot of times I hear people who are really nervous about something, but they haven't actually done it. For example, I was recently talking to a girl who was, a little bit nervous about going to India, and she was hearing all these negative things from people who haven't solo traveled to India. I'm not saying there aren't things to be concerned about with travel to India. I do it quite a bit, but at the same time, it's like you want to surround yourself with travelers, surround yourself with people so that the information that you're getting is based on real information, not based on people's perceptions, okay? Okay, another thing that is really important when it comes to traveling is preparation. So there's lots of different categories of preparation. There's booking your trip, which is obviously essential. If you're going to go, you have to book things. But then there's also cultural preparations that you need to be aware of and do. For example, I'm in Thailand right now. Thailand can be kind of liberal. I'll dress a little bit more casual in Thailand than I would in India. But right now, by the way, I'm at a temple. Let me give you a better look at the temple where I am. See up there? It's the temple where I'm sitting. So I want to be culturally appropriate, okay? So I am at a temple. I'm in Thailand. I have this hoodie on, even though it's hot. But it's because without the hoodie, right, the strappy, top, maybe no one would say anything. Who knows? But I want to be respectful. And I'm aware that Thailand is a conservative country. So that's the kind of research. You want to do some cultural research before you go to make sure that you're not breaking rules. People have been arrested in Thailand for doing things that they think are funny that Thai people don't think are funny, right? There was some people who got arrested for putting their butt out, taking a photo, in like a kind of a place that was, I think maybe it was a temple or something, and that's just not at all okay, in Thailand. So when you're going to a country, look up cultural norms. What's different? In Thailand, even pointing your foot at a person can be considered rude. The feet, you just don't point them in Thailand. So countries have different little nuances. Just do a quick Google search. Make sure that where you're going, you just know you're not going to accidentally offend someone. Laws can be different in different countries. Make sure you're up on that. Some countries take things like drugs and stuff very seriously. If you're into that, make sure you know the rules. I recommend staying away from all of that stuff when you're traveling because what you really don't want to do is find yourself on an episode of Locked Up Abroad. I've watched a few. It does not look like fun. So I would say just steer clear of anything like that, and then you don't have to worry about it or do any prep as well, okay? But when it comes to actually booking your trip, so there are a few sites that I really like. So one is, I use booking.com to book a lot of my trips. I'm going to put an affiliate link that I have down there, and I'm not just sending you the link because, you know, I can get a commission, which I can, but this is actually the site that I use. And when I first started traveling, I used a different site. I'm not going to say the name because I don't want to knock companies, but it's a big site that I used to use in the US, and I was always going to terrible hotels and stuff because I don't know if they were having a fake review problem, but honestly, I stayed at terrible places. So now I use booking.com, and I use Hostel World sometimes if I'm going to stay in hostels, and I really trust those sites, and they haven't really led me astray. So when it comes to booking, that's what I would look at for hotels and stuff. For airfare, I use Skyscanner to check flights. I don't usually book through Skyscanner. Sorry, Skyscanner. But I will look at Skyscanner, check the prices of flights, and they usually go directly onto the airline website. But Skyscanner is cool because it's a website that will show you lots of different airlines, and you can do flexible dates. You can just get a lot of information. I have the hiccups. I just ate a bunch of Thai soup that was spicy. Anyway, that's a side note. Okay, so Skyscanner is really, really important. And then when I talk to people, whether they're solo traveling or whether they're with friends already, a lot of people, you know, kind of want to know how to meet people, especially if they're on their own. So one big thing is where you stay. It goes a long way as to whether or not you're going to meet people. Hostels are a great way to meet people. Now, if you've never stayed in a hostel before, you don't really like the idea of sharing space, you can still stay at a hostel, because a lot of hostels, in addition to having like a common room or like shared rooms that have bunk beds, a lot of hostels have private rooms. So you can stay in a hostel and still use, you know, the hostel facilities, use the common room, and still have some privacy. On top of that, let's say you're like, no, I want to travel a little bit in luxury. I understand that. I really like to be comfortable a lot of the time, whenever I can. So if you're going to stay somewhere like that, like you're staying at a really nice hotel, but you still want to meet people, it was a challenge for me when I was first traveling, because I was in Thailand, I was in the islands, I wasn't making videos then, but I was by myself, and it was like me and like couples that were honeymooning. It was not fun. So if you're going to do that, you need to think about ways that you can be social. What I like to do in that situation is go to a hostel, maybe just like to have a drink. Some hostels actually have bars and little lounge areas, so you could go there just to talk to people and get advice. You know, you don't really have to be staying at a hostel just to use their facilities, but not every hostel is great for networking. So you can kind of read reviews of hostels and see like who has a good common area. Not every hostel does. So if you show up at a hostel that doesn't have a good common area, you just might feel awkward. But by the way, it's okay to feel a little bit awkward sometimes. I think you show up at a hostel, you feel a little bit awkward, you can like stay and push through it, or you can leave. You know, it's cool. You don't know anybody, so who cares what they think of you? You know, like if they think, wow, that Roman girl came and she was like really awkward, she didn't like know how to talk to people, or she was just standing there, not the end of the world. You know, the great thing that I think about travel is that you kind of leave parts of yourself at home. You know, if you're like super shy, but you kind of want to get over it, you could just try to not be that. Or if you're always really outgoing, but you know, it feels like a burden and you just want to kind of lay back and not be so chatty all the time, you know, like you don't have to be anybody. No one knows who you are. So it's kind of like you're free in a lot of ways. But side note, to say something about that too, like you are free when you travel, but it's not that travel automatically takes your problems away. Like, so I'm here in Chiang Mai, Thailand, and a lot of people are now moving out here, which is awesome, and I love to see all the expats and digital nomads here who are moving to Thailand, but a lot of them find that it's not always as simple as it seems. You know, it's like, oh, I'm gonna move to Thailand, I'm gonna spend $10 a month on all my expenses and it's gonna be amazing. Does it exactly always work that way? And things don't always go according to plan. So being flexible is really an important thing with travel, and with making sure that you have a good time. So what else do we need to talk about? We talked about how to talk to friends. We talked about planning our trips, going on our trips, making friends. I mean, I think those are really like some of the big things that you need to think about with travel. Am I missing anything with prep? Oh, I am. Oh my gosh, I can't believe I almost forgot. So there's one other thing I wanted to tell you about. So if you are going to travel and you're going to travel to hostels, there is a range as far as how nice hostels are, how clean hostels are. And I recently bought something that I actually really like, because it's like a little travel sheet, and you can put it in your bed. There's a car behind me that was like, drawing my attention. It was like coming a little bit too close for comfort, but I think I'm okay. Anyway, there's like this travel sheet that I bought. I'll put a link down so that you can see it. But you can bring it with you. And I like it because it gives me like a little barrier. It's not like to prevent against something like bed bugs or that sort of a thing, which oh my God, like knock wood, knock something. I haven't had an issue with that when traveling. But it's just like, I have stayed in hostels and in places where I don't think they changed the sheets. I know they didn't change the sheet. I was at a place in Mumbai and just a few too many hairs. Now, by the way, I've definitely stayed at plenty of places that were clean, but I did stay at a place I don't believe they changed the sheets. So that's also can come in handy to have a little sheet like that. I travel with that. I don't really usually travel with a travel pillow, although I have one this trip because I was on a really long flight to get to Thailand. But there's little extras. I'm also putting together a blog for my website, so I'm going to post the link to that when that's ready, so that you can see like a whole list of the things that I travel with. Because after 3 years, I'll be honest, I don't know, there's some things I really don't like to leave home without. So I'm putting that together and I'll show you all of those things. But the main thing is that when you travel, it's meant to be fun, and you don't have to over plan and prepare. I mean, this is one more thing I will say though about preparation, which is that me personally, I like a lot of information when I'm going on a trip, and I like to know about scams, because I think when I was first traveling, it's something that I was really worried about. But I'm the kind of person that when I get information, even if it's negative information, it doesn't scare me, it empowers me. It's like, oh, okay, this could go wrong, so let me read about it and prepare, so now I know how to handle it going forward. I think some people, they hear about scams and it scares them and it paralyzes them, and then they don't want to leave. Or they hear about an incident that happened to someone was injured, this happened, and now they don't want to go. If you're that person, all I would say is put it into context, like every place has some issues. Any country, any city, is not perfect and free of, one or two crazies that might do something wrong. However, I like to post videos about, scam preparation, travel prep, not to scare anybody, but just to give the information to prepare people. So that is a part of my travel prep that I also do, is I look into, are there scams that happen in this city? I mean, honestly, I don't look anymore because I feel like I've heard so many of the different scams that happen that I'm pretty well versed, but I just still think it's interesting sometimes. But it's not meant to scare. It's not meant to deter. It's a prep, right? It's to prepare myself for other people for what may come in the future, not to be a deterrent. So those are my travel tips. Whether you're a solo traveler, you're going with friends, hope you have an amazing time. If you have other questions, just leave me a comment and let me know, and we can continue this conversation. There's so much more to come. Make sure you subscribe if you haven't already done so, and I'll see you soon.